Hi guys, it's me Anne from Geeks of Green, and today we will talk about how to propagate our plant cuttings in soil or in soilless mixes. Before we get into the video, I would quickly like to tell you that the month of June has a giveaway planned for you, and I would like to thank Green Planet 14, an Instagram seller who has sent us a Hoya that we can give out to you guys if you participate in this giveaway. Now the giveaway rules are just like the giveaway that we did last year. I will leave all the rules in the description down below. So all the best, do try your luck at winning this beautiful Hoya. So I've bought plants from the seller some time back also. Do go and check out her Instagram page. I will also leave the link of the unboxing that I did of her plants in the description down below. You can check that out as well. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram for closer interactions, for plant updates, and lots of other stuff. So remember to follow us on Instagram as well. Now let's get started and talk about soil propagation. Soil propagation is one of the easiest and most hassle-free methods of propagation according to me, in my experience. I find it easy because I skip the unnecessary steps where you put a plant in water or cutting in water, wait for it to root, and then transfer it into soil and things like that. So I skip those unnecessary steps and just go in for soil propagation. So it is one method that I use very frequently, and I would like to share with you how I go about doing things when I soil propagate. So let's talk about the how right now. The first thing you need to do is get your cuttings. When you take a cutting, ensure that you cut close to the node, and also the cut should be clean using clean tools. And when you're cutting, cut at an angle just around a centimeter or a little more under the node. The next thing you do is pluck out any leaves that are growing on that node and clear that node out so that you can bury it in the soil substrate and it can grow roots freely. Ensure that you take cuttings from a plant that is healthy and pest free. If a plant is struggling or is fighting pests, the success rate of your propagation will be less. So if you want a higher success rate, go for a healthy cutting and a pest-free cutting. Take multiple cuttings, not just one cutting, because sometimes some cuttings don't survive. And if you just take one cutting, you will be disheartened or disappointed at the end of it if that particular cutting doesn't survive. So to increase your success rate, take multiple cuttings. Now, when you're selecting the substrate or the media that is going into your pot, you can do it 2 or 3 ways. So I will tell you the different options that are there. And I will also tell you the option that I follow, which is most convenient to me. Okay, so the first thing that you can do is just use coco peat. Coco peat is moisture retaining. It is free of bacteria and free of any organic matter that could harm your cutting. So you can just propagate that plant in a coco peat, a pot full of coco peat. Okay. After your cutting has propagated, you can shift it into a proper soil substrate or a mix which has different media in it, which is more suitable for your plant to grow properly. That is one thing you can do. The next thing you can do is you can also mix other inert materials like perlite and pumice and things that will not cause bacteria to grow in your pot full of cuttings. That also is fine. And the third way you can do it is the way I do it. I generally prepare an aroid mix and keep it handy in a box, in a container. Then whenever I have to propagate a plant, I just simply take that mix and I directly propagate it. So this mix that I make contains coco peat, perlite, vermicompost, bark, cocoa chips, brick. As and when I have these materials available, I mix them up and I keep them handy so that I can use it for soil propagation or for repotting my plants. So this mix I feel has always worked for me, but it may not work for you. And if you want to be extra careful, you can use just a mix of coco peat and perlite. That should also work fine. Now when I put my cuttings in this kind of mix, I don't have to transfer it into another pot of soil. I can let the plant grow as it is in that particular pot without having to change it or without having to fuss around its roots, or getting the plant too stressed by repotting and repotting again. So that works for me. It may work for you, it may not work for you. So you can choose according to your discretion. When you select your container, you can either select an open pot or you can select a humidity box. Now, the difference between both of them is that the open pot doesn't have any means to trap humidity around your cutting, but the humidity box has a way to trap humidity around your cutting. It keeps the cuttings more humid. So, and even the environment around it is more controlled. So it's up to you what you want to choose. I do both the methods personally. I also put it in open pots and I also put it in humidity boxes. If you're not selecting humidity boxes, you can be mindful to propagate your plants in the rainy season or during springtime when the humidity is more high. Rainy season, I would say, is the best time to propagate your plants because it's cooler and it's raining. The humidity is extremely high. Cuttings do really well during that time. Now I'll quickly show you how I place the cuttings in both these containers, in open pots and in humidity boxes, and how I set them up. I will be making a mix for my humidity box, which will include 3 mediums. The first one being coco peat. The next one, vermiculite. Now, vermiculite is a medium that also holds a lot of moisture, so it's very moisture retaining. So, I'm going to mix a little bit of vermiculite, and lastly, I will be putting some perlite. Perlite aerates the soil and makes it very breathable. It also holds water, but not as much as the vermiculite. Vermiculite has more water holding capacity. So this is a mix that I'm making for my humidity box. Now, when you're using vermiculite, you have to be careful that you buy a good brand, a good quality, because there is online a lot of fake vermiculite which has asbestos in it, which is harmful. So you rather buy a good brand that is good. And vermiculite also is used mainly for plant propagation and growing seedlings because it has the ability to retain a lot of water. So now we will be setting up my humidity box. I have a small sized one and it has a lid that fits in properly and very easy to remove the lid. Okay, so you also get bigger sized ones in the market. It's easily available. This one I've got from IKEA. As you can see, I have filled about an inch of the substrate here in this humidity box, and I'm going to be taking this Monstera Peru cutting, dividing it and placing it inside this box. Because it is a humidity box, I'm going to take these nodes and place them as it is. I'm not going to remove the leaves. So I'll be cutting in between the nodes like this. I won't be throwing away the leaves. I'll be using every leaf and I'm separating every leaf like this. That way I'll have more Monstera Peru cuttings. This last one will go like this. Now to hold the cuttings in place, I will be using some wire. Because it's the first time I'll be wetting my substrate, I will use a watering can to wet it. But I have to be careful that I don't put too much water. The next time that I water this humidity box, I will do it with a sprayer so that I don't end up overwatering my plant. After you have watered it a bit, you can just mix it up so that the water mixes up properly and your substrate is completely wet. Otherwise, it will take time because coco peat is very dry and it takes time to completely soak up. You can see that it has already fluffed up and it's come up. Water only as much as you require. But before you put your plant in, it is very important to see that the whole thing is moist. I would say after you wet your substrate, wait for a little bit because coco peat takes time to completely soak up and become wet. And it's also a good idea to have see-through containers because you can see what's happening in the box. You can check the humidity, you can check what the plant is, how the plant is faring. So a humidity box being see-through is a good idea. Since my plants don't have very long nodes that I can poke in, it's just one single node with a leaf on top, I will be placing it like this on the soil and I will be holding it in place with a wire. Okay, this wire comes very handy with my gardening needs. So I'm going to cut small pieces to just hold it in place. And we will fill the box with as many cuttings as we can. I'm going to shape it like this and put it right above the node so that it kind of immerses. This next one now, because the leaves are really big, I don't think I'll be able to fit many cuttings into this particular box. I'm going to try to keep the leaves not touching the ground because I don't want it to rot in any way. Having a bigger container could really help because the cuttings can be spaced out. And if you have a small container, no problem, just see that the leaves are not touching the sides where the water condenses and the leaves get wet and they will probably rot. So it is absolutely important that you open the lid few minutes in a day so that the plant is able to dry up a little and fresh air goes in. So this is all I do. I close my box and then I keep it in a place where it gets good light. This other method of propagating in soil mixes in open containers works like this. I just have to fill it up with my substrate. I do it over a bucket because it's got a lot of drainage holes and the soil will fall out. It's like potting any plant. For this one, we will prepare the synapsis cuttings. Over here, I will be removing this leaf. This node is free. It will go underneath. You may come across such stem cuttings that don't have a single leaf. You don't have to throw it out, you just have to separate it and poke it into soil because yes, these also can produce roots. So you just have to poke it in. Just remember which is the way it is growing, don't poke it upside down. That's it, we are done. Now I ensure that I moisten the substrate and keep it humid. Ensure that you water thoroughly the first time because the substrate is dry and it has to soak up the water, so it will take some time. So keep putting, stopping, keep putting, stopping, keep putting, stopping till you're satisfied that the substrate is wet, and also see that everything drains out from the bottom. All the excess water drains out properly. Now I generally won't bag these cuttings because the thing is that the rains are here and the humidity is very high. However, what I will do is I will show you how to bag your plants if you want to, if you are living in a dry place where the humidity is less. So take a plastic packet that's much bigger than your pot and your cutting, and if the plastic packet is see-through, it is much better because you can see what's happening inside. Right now, this is all that I have. Put it around your pot like this. Okay, ensure that it's not sticking to the leaves much. Then take a rubber band and simply fasten that rubber band around your pot like this. Adjust it well so the pot is standing, and like I said, poke a few holes so that your plant doesn't completely suffocate, or at least every 2 to 3 days open up the packet and see that fresh air circulates in, so that the plant doesn't completely rot inside. Keep a keen eye on it and watch the leaves. If the leaves are touching the sides, they can rot. I've seen that happening. So be very careful when you're bagging, and take a bigger sized bag so that it doesn't touch the plant completely. Now, after I've put in my cuttings, I ensure that I water the plants. In the humidity box, you need to be more careful because there aren't any drainage holes. So you have to spray. I would say spraying water is a more effective way than pouring water into this humidity box. But when you are watering the pot, you can pour the water and ensure that it drains out. Ensure that the whole substrate is moist. Now, the greatest challenge of soil propagation is keeping the media moist. Because if you're a person who forgets to water your plants, or you're living in a dry climate and the substrate dries up faster, you have to be more attentive to keep your media moist. That is the reason, that is the only advantage that water propagation and semi-hydro have over soil propagation, is the media losing its moisture. And moisture is absolutely essential for the roots to grow. So ensure that you keep your media moist. The soil has to be moist, but it doesn't have to be soggy and overly wet. After you have watered your cuttings, it is important that you place it somewhere where it gets enough light. Don't keep it in a place which is too dark, and don't keep it in a place that has full sun, which can scorch your cuttings. So I would say pick a place that has indirect bright light, really bright light, so that your cuttings grow normally. I have also had success keeping my cuttings under an LED tube light, very close to an LED tube light. My cuttings have grown fine. So you can even try that as well if you have a lack of light. Once you have kept the humidity up, and you have kept your substrate moist, and you have given the cutting enough light, your cutting will definitely start growing roots in a couple of weeks. So be patient, keep a watch on your cuttings, check on them every day if possible, and ensure that they grow fine. If you have put it in a coco peat mixture which doesn't have any other mediums, what you can do is you can transfer it after the roots have grown around an inch or a little more than that. So transfer your cuttings into a mix that you generally use. I would say don't put a lot of clay soil into your mixes, because clay soil particles are very fine and compacting. So I would say use less clay soil and more of things like vermicompost and coco peat, perlite, humus, bark, and cocoa chips. These make a very good, airy, nutrient rich and moisture retaining soil mix. Remember this, that you won't have 100% success rate. Maybe if you have around 10-15 cuttings, a few of your cuttings might not survive, they might die. But if you follow all these rules very carefully, I'm sure you will have a lot of cuttings surviving and thriving and growing. I'm telling you from my experience, I've done this quite frequently with many of my plants. So you can definitely try this out. So all the best to you for soil propagation. I hope you multiply your plants by following this method and you enjoy a lot of plants in your life. If this video has helped you, don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so. Follow us on Instagram as well. And when you subscribe to the channel, don't forget to hit the bell icon to receive notifications of all videos that we upload in the future. I hope to see you soon in another video. Till then, stay green.